That will also be 7 to 9 o'clock. And we have Jane Campbell and John Bradford running for the District 98 seat. And any other candidate that is running for office is welcome to attend that as well. But those are going to be the only two candidates that we actually have a Q&A format on. We also have, the Chamber of Commerce is having a public safety luncheon that will be a week from this today, a week from today. It's going to be at Georgetown Country Club. It's an opportunity for us to say thank you to the police, the fire, the EMS, and the Crime Stop of the Year. There will be one officer selected from Huntersville, Davidson, Cornelius Fire and Police, representatives of their departments. So if that's something you'd like to attend, you can go on the Chamber's website, or they go on chamber.org. It's $20 to attend it. We'd love to have you. And again, that's going to be Georgetown Country Club, 11:45 next Thursday. And then the, I guess that's the two things I want to talk about: public safety luncheon and the candidate forum. The last thing that I will tell you is we're also taking up school supplies, and she just walked in the door, Melinda Bales. Melinda, say a little bit about what we're doing with the school supply drive.
Sure. So, the school supply drive is for all of our area high schools, and we'll be taking the supplies and divvying them up between all of the 5 publicly funded schools in Lake Norman. And it will help students who don't have access to school supplies throughout the year to be able to. And so we're very excited that while the area typically does school supply drives, a lot of that tends to end up in the elementary schools. And this is going specifically and directly to our high school students.
You can drop those school supplies off at any of the Cuesta Bank locations or the Chamber of Commerce and get some of those supplies, notebooks, paper, composition books, pencils, pens, highlighters, any of that type of material. And again, we'll be doing that throughout the month. What I'd like to do before we introduce our moderator is recognize the mayor of Huntersville, John Anarella.
First of all, I want to recognize the town commissioners that are here. Commissioner Boone. This is a critical seat for Huntersville. It's kind of a crazy district. It goes from literally my backyard, I believe, I'm actually in the district, all the way down to Pineville. And a good portion of those in Huntersville. So whoever wins, we have to have a good working relationship with. So I appreciate all the commissioners coming out tonight, and certainly appreciate both the candidates. And good luck to both of you, and we look forward to working with whoever wins. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Now what I'd like to do is recognize the chairman of the board of Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, Calvin Bryant, who also served as a former public policy chair for a couple of years with the Chamber of Commerce, and who has emceed a number of our candidate forums. And we have our former County Commissioner, Karen Bentley, who just walked in the ring. Calvin will be moderating this evening's events, and he's going to go over our procedures and protocol on how we're going to be doing some things. Jack Stevens on my staff is back in the back of the room. If you would like to ask a question, if you'll hold up your hand, he'll bring you an index card. If you don't have a pen, he'll bring you a pen. And then once you fill that out, he's going to actually hold it up again and he'll come pick it up. Again, Calvin's going to go over how we're going to get this thing started, so give your attention to Calvin Bryant.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bill. Thank you all for coming on behalf of the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce. We've got a lot of cards up here, a lot of questions. If you fill one out, just hold it up. Jack will come by and get it. A lot of times in these we have a lot of similar questions, and so if you don't hear your question exactly, it's because I've had to mold them into a single question. For instance, we have a stack of 12 questions already, and so we will cover that. We probably don't need any more right now, but just to cover the ground rules, please silence your cell phones. The most important thing that I feel like over the years I've moderated these panels is that this is a forum. A lot of times the word debate gets thrown in there. That's when two folks go at it, but that's not our goal here. Our goal here is to give these candidates the respect they deserve and give them an opportunity to answer these questions. This is our opportunity to, not through Facebook, not through Twitter, and all the email and all these other things, including lots of mailers in your mailbox, to look them in the eye and judge the sincerity of their responses. And this is a great forum to do that, and I hope we can all respect those rules. We don't want outbursts. We applause and boos and jeers. You'll be asked to leave because we really want to respect that. So if everybody could please adhere to those rules, even if there's some good singers, congratulate them later. So I wanted to cover that, and our goal is to cover ideas and concepts that are that mean a lot to our local community, and of course, being the Chamber of Commerce, mean a lot to our business members who we focus on. We're not going to ask you questions whether or not you're bear hunting with Vladimir Putin or any, have you? No. Or anything like that on a national level. We want to keep it to North Carolina related stuff. So as the candidates know the rules, but I'll tell everybody just a couple of the rules. There's a 3-minute opening and closing statement. Each candidate will be afforded an opportunity to respond to each question. Jack's got some more questions for me. And the order of responses will change each time. Typically, we'll do 1-minute response. We have a timekeeper right here, Mr. Bill Russell, will show you the cards. And that's your signal to wrap up. If there's you see the stop sign right there? You know how that works. In the event there's a question that we have a lot of interest on, we might give you a couple more minutes to add that and to follow up. We're not here to be too tight on the rules, but we need to keep it moving. So I think that's all the ground rules. And we flipped a coin beforehand, and we're going to let candidate Caulfield do her opening statement.
Well, it's great to see everybody here tonight. I love to see people engaged in the political process. It's interesting to be in this seat tonight. I actually served as a Huntersville Town Commissioner, and this was actually my chair. So it feels a little funny to be back in here. One of the things I said this at all the debate forums that Mr. Beasley and I have been at is that him and I are applying for the same job. We're not enemies. We just have different ideas and we have different experiences. And I think that's important. One of the things that I'd love to bring back to the political process is civility. I think it's gotten to the point where it's so bad that people don't even want to engage anymore. And so I think it's important that as we discuss the issues, that we stick to civility, and I know we have, and I appreciate that. And so one of the things that I want to bring to the table, one of the reasons I'm running, is I believe that people are hurting, our communities are hurting, and they're looking for leaders that will go to Raleigh and they'll say, you know what, it doesn't matter if you're Republican, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, why don't we get some things done for our community and not care who gets the credit? And so that's really my heart. I'm doing this not because I'm looking for a political career. I'm doing this because I care for my community. I'm a real estate broker by profession, and I feel like the things that I've learned in that career over the last 18 years, being able to take a buyer or seller, to get them together, and then walk away from the table with a smile on their face. Why can't we do that in politics? So that's going to be my goal. People say, you can't do it. Why don't we try? And somebody has to step up to the plate and do that. A little bit more in case I don't get time. I have 3 minutes here. My background is I served in the United States Air Force. My husband and I met in the Air Force. He's still serving. As I just said, I was a former town commissioner. That gave me a lot of experience looking at large budgets. Having to make decisions when real people are on the other side of that is a big difference. I remember sitting as a citizen saying, I do this, I do that. When you actually get in and you look at the budget and you have to decide to cut spending because you don't want to raise taxes, there are people that are going to be mad at you because it affects real people. And so I think that experience coming into this has given me a different perspective, knowing that when I go to Raleigh, I'm going to be dealing with people in my own party that I may have to stand up to and have courage. The military actually gave me that experience. There were issues that I went through in the military, that I had to stand up and challenge some things, and that's not a comfortable position.
But we can do it. There's a saying that says, dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone. And so I'm going to do that when I need to, but there's also another saying that actually came from my family line. And it goes like this: united we stand, divided we fall. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Chaz Beasley, and I am running for the North Carolina House here in District 92. For those of you who I haven't had a chance to meet yet, I grew up here in the area, about a half hour from this building, in Catawba County. And I was raised by a single mom. And today I was actually thinking a lot about my upbringing. And in particular, now that we're getting close to Halloween, I was thinking about the time when I was a little kid and I wanted to be a Power Ranger. And my mom couldn't afford a costume. So she went to Walmart and bought an all one color jumpsuit and a toboggan and put it on my head, tied a bed sheet around my neck, and said I was a Power Ranger. And that was one of those things that you look back on fondly, but I think it shows how important it was for her to provide me with things that she may not have been able to afford, but still making sure that I had those experiences. And I'm so proud of her, I'm proud of my family, I'm proud of my faith upbringing, and I'm also proud that I went to a great public school right here in the area. And that's what allowed me to go from my public school to Harvard and to Georgetown for law school. But that's not anything special about me, because there are plenty of kids, many of whom live right here in Huntersville and in District 92, who have just as much capability and possibility as I had, but aren't getting the same quality education that I got. And I understand that was my ticket out. That was my way of actually transforming my life. And so we have to remember that when we make decisions in Raleigh, they're not just words on a page, they're not just ayes and nays. They are things that change the lives and the directions of people in North Carolina. My background is that I'm a finance attorney in downtown Charlotte. I've been working in a law firm there for going on 4 years. And before that, I worked in economic research in the housing industry. I understand how the economy works. You hear a lot of politicians say, let's create jobs. How are you going to do it? Do you understand how the economy functions? Do you understand how you can actually make those jobs and how you can sustain the jobs that we already have, which is oftentimes left out of the equation? And one of the things that my background in the law helped me to do was to review large-scale contracts. I do that every day. And so when I heard about the toll project, I read the contract. I knew what to look for because I do that in my everyday job. And I found that it was the wrong deal for our area, and it was a raw deal for our state. But here's the thing that we have to keep in mind. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There are 2 other of these types of contracts that are now authorized under law. So running for this seat, I understand it's not just about what we're doing now and here. It's about the future of our district and ultimately the future of 10 million people who live in our state. I look forward to answering your questions.
All right, thank you so much. The first question will be to candidate Beasley. What will be your top priorities if elected? I think you were on that train of thought.
Yeah, well,
1 minute.
Well, growing up without much and understanding how important education was in changing my life, I'd say that's one of my top priorities. I think one of the things that you have to do when you're running for office is that you have to balance competing priorities. And that you have to understand that your priority one day may change the next. And so it's not just about what I say my priority is right now. It's also about what the priority will be when I'm actually in office and when I'm dealing with complex issues on a day-to-day basis. So I look forward not only to making the best interests of District 92 my top priority, but also working on issues like education that can really have that transformative power.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. What will be your top priorities if elected?
Thank you. Well, I think the first one is public safety, because if we have great roads, if we have great schools, but if we're all afraid to go to the school, if we're all afraid to use our roads, what good are they? So my first one is public safety, and that means making sure that our law enforcement officers have money for training and ensuring that we're there to support them and that we're listening to that community. to what their needs are. One of my next priorities would be our schools. As I've gone out and I've knocked on a lot of doors, I'm surprised at the overwhelming majority of people that have said that schools are their top priority. And they want to make sure, people want to make sure that our teachers are treated like professionals, and they should be. And they want to make sure, and this is one of my heart's desires, I want to make sure that all schools are equal in every neighborhood, that they don't have asbestos, they don't have mold, they're not falling apart. Every child should have access to the same education and to the same school building. And so that's my second one. My other one is going to be the economy. And I've done that in Huntersville, and I'll do that again for our state. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we're on an education question, the next one is to you, Candidate Caulfield. How do you view the balance between public schools and charter schools? What can be done to improve our education besides increasing teacher pay?
Well, to the first part about public schools and charter schools. Charter schools are public schools. They're just non-traditional public schools. And so the state gives funding to both traditional and charter schools. I support both of them. And I'll tell you why. Because if we want children to be educated, if that's our goal, then we should be supporting the child, not an institution. And I'm going to say another thing. I've heard some people that I've talked to lately kind of be a little bit mad about charter schools because they don't have a strict guidance. But the one thing about charter schools versus traditional is if they don't do well by the standards, they get shut down. Traditional public schools don't get shut down. They just get poured more money, more money. So I say this, why don't we go look at the charter schools that are more successful? The college rate, people coming out of there is much higher. SAT scores are higher. What are they doing that's successful? Why can't we take that and put it into the traditional public school, right? And implement that, because it's about the children. And I know I probably didn't get to the second part, but.
Yes, I just put it away, sorry. How do you view the balance between public schools and charter schools? What can be done to improve our education besides increasing teacher pay?
So when our state first started creating charter schools, the idea was that we would have a limited but small number of charter schools. We would test different ideas, see what works, and if those ideas work, then those lessons will be applied to the public schools in general. What that provided was the flexibility to be able to see what works, but also it made sure that if something didn't work, which is a possibility, that the kids were adequately protected and that their long-term educational futures weren't hampered. So I think we have to get back to basics on this issue and a lot of issues. We have to make sure that not only that kids who go into charter schools are getting a great education, but that if something does go wrong, because things do go wrong from time to time, that when they come back into the public school system, that they have the tools that they need to succeed. And we also have to make sure that every child, regardless of whether or not they are in a charter school or a traditional public school, are able to get the same quality education that I believe every child deserves.
Does anybody want another minute on the education question to finish?
Sure, I'll take time.
All right, it sounds like there's a little more of that. You finished up your question, you didn't have the opportunity to answer. What can we do to improve our education besides increasing teacher pay?
Okay, thank you. So I think one of my strengths is I'm a collaborator. And that means bringing people together. And so I don't think I have all the answers. I'm not a professional as an educator. But why don't we bring educators together and sit them down? So I've gone on knocking on doors, and I've heard teachers saying, we don't want more money for technology. It's distracting. We want more money for the classroom. And then I talked to a teacher today who said there are certain parts of the county that want money for technology. So why don't we bring these heads together, and why don't we find out what they need and what they want, and it's not one size fits all, right? Because again, the goal is to educate our children, and it's not, one thing we've been putting them in a straitjacket, that's how I look at school, making them sit for 8 hours in the classroom. Really, we can't come up with something better, some better system that our kids could flourish in. And so I'd love to bring people together, people of great minds, that this is their expertise, and say, how can we do this better?
Candidate Caulfield, or Beasley, one more minute?
So when I first started running for this seat, one of the first things that I did was reach out to every single principal of every single school in District 92, in every public school. And most of them got back to me, and I sat down with them and talked to them about their ideas to see what they thought was working. And the one thing that every single one of them, to a person, brought up was that there was a big disconnect between what was actually coming down from the Department of Public Instruction and what actually was being implemented on the ground level. So there would be things that looked good on paper that didn't translate into the classroom. I am a big believer in going to the people who are actually doing the work and seeing what they think should change or what they think should stay the same. That's how we learn how things are going to improve. By not only talking to the teachers, but talking to the principals, talking to the teachers, and talking to the kids. Because ultimately, they oftentimes have perspectives that are not valued enough.
Thank you. The Lake Norman Chamber of this next question will be used candidate Beasley. The Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce is concerned that state and federal regulations, healthcare costs, and employee benefits are weighing heavily on a business or the corporation's bottom line. What would you do as a member of the legislature to reward entrepreneurship and promote job growth? 1 minute.
So as someone who works with a lot of small, medium, and large-sized businesses in my everyday life, what I often see is that there is, very similarly to what I was just talking about with education, there's a bit of a disconnect between what is done on paper and what actually happens in practice. So one of the things that we have to do is, number one, understand that if you create 10 new jobs, but you lose 11, that's still one fewer job that you have in the economy. Job sustainability is something that's not discussed enough. One of the best ways that you can sustain jobs is by making sure that when new people move in, that they're plugged into an existing business network. A network's very similar to the chamber, for example. Also making sure that when new ideas are created, when new ideas are passed to incentivize bringing in new jobs, that you're also bringing in incentives that keep and create the jobs among the people who are already here. Because oftentimes that can be the foundation upon which new jobs are created and brought into the state.
Do you, candidate Coffey?
Thank you. Well, one of the things that we've actually seen worked in our state over the last few years is what the legislature has done, and that is they have cut corporate taxes. And we've seen a very big boost in our economy from that. You don't hear that in the media, unfortunately. But in 2009, there were 25,000 businesses that closed. And so when, in 2010, they started to change the corporate tax rate, it went from 6.9%, then it went to 4%, and then it's down to 3%. And so there's an organization called the Tax Foundation Organization, and they do this thing called a tax climate. And North Carolina actually went from 41st to 11th in 1 year on their rating. So those are the regulations, those are the things we need to change. We need to drop the tax rate down for businesses, because people start saying, well, you're supporting the wealthy if you do that. No, we're supporting entrepreneurs, job creators, and job creators are the ones that provide jobs for people who need income. And so it's a ripple effect, and so we have to definitely keep our corporate tax rate down, and that's going to really help.
Thank you. This is sort of a follow-up question in the same line someone's asked regarding tax incentives. What is your view on tax incentives bring jobs to North Carolina? So sort of follow up on that, but we'll start with you so you can finish your thought on that, and then go ahead.
Okay. Well, as a commissioner, we dealt with that a lot, and I had to wrestle with that one, because you want to make sure you're not showing favoritism to one company over another, and that's a real big concern. The reality is we have South Carolina to the south of us, who is a very big competitor for us, and what was happening is businesses wanted to come here, and they were offering them like great deals. And so what we did, I was actually on the board when we brought ABB here. It's a great company. It's provided a lot of jobs to our area. And we offered them incentives, but we did it with goals. So they had to meet certain goals. And then once they met those goals, they got the taxes refunded to them. So they paid them ahead of time. And then once they met those goals, that they had to create so many jobs, right? Then the money went back to them. And I think, you have to be careful, because like I said, you don't want to give an unfair, playing field, but at the same time, our area needs jobs, and my goal is to help our community, and so that's what I want to do, because I want to bring businesses that provide jobs to my community.
Thank you, candidate Beasley.
So when you're looking at the best way to create economic incentives, I think the best thing to do is actually go back to basics. Economic incentives are supposed to be designed to create things that are socially or economically advantageous for your community. So what we want to do is we not only want to encourage those things to happen, but we also want to make sure that those things continue to happen and that you can have a snowball effect down the line in the positive direction. I'm a big believer in not only providing the carrots that you need to bring in new businesses or, as I talked about earlier, sustain current businesses, but also to make sure that if they don't hold up their end of the bargain, then the taxpayer won't be left on the hook. You need both. And if you have both, then what you'll bring in is employers who understand how important it is that they fit into the fabric of the community and that they don't just come in for small-term or short-term benefits.
Thank you. On transportation, the next question will be to you. By giggling about transportation. Both of you have gone on record opposing the I-77 toll project. If elected, what should be done regarding the I-77 improvements? 1 minute.
So, number one, the contract should be canceled. That's step one. Step two is that future contracts should be stopped. As I mentioned in my opening statements, a lot of people don't realize that right now, under current state statute, there are actually 2 more Centra-style contracts that are authorized. Now, the best thing that we can do is to not only help our current community by stopping this project, but to save other communities from going through what we've gone through here. And so, it's not only about this. It's about making sure that this doesn't become this and this and this, and right now, under state law, that's allowed. I will fight to change that in Raleigh.
Is the question, what would I do?
What should be done regarding the I-77 improvements?
Well, if we could move the clock back, we should have never did it, that's for sure. You know, they're moving at a rapid pace to get the tolls done. I think that's on purpose. I'm a believer in you fight to the very last breath until you know you can't fight anymore. People said, it's a done deal, there's nothing you can do. Well, it's like saying, you know, we can't go to the moon. No, you just keep trying and then you go to the moon. So I do think that we should, once we get new people in, again, it's gonna be a new year, we're gonna take a look at that contract again and see what the penalties are and try to cancel that contract. There's gonna be penalties, there's no doubt about it. But we have to try to stop this because it's so long-reaching. The tolls are so long-reaching. I'm going to run out of time, but I'll take up some more time in a minute. Not only are the tolls bad for our way of life, because that's our main street, and that's what people that don't live in this area don't realize. That's our main street. That's our W.T. Harris, our Independence Boulevard. We go to our restaurants, we go to the doctor using that, and I'll do part 2 in a minute.
Okay. Well, we're going to stay on the topic. There are a handful of these questions. But shifting slightly, let's assume Centra operates toll lanes for the next decade, maybe 50 years. How do you propose to mitigate the congestion which will face our drivers throughout our Lake Norman regions whose household budget does not allow for the cost of paying tolls on a daily basis? And the question is you.
Okay. Well, we're in a little bit of a quandary here because we have the lake. And so we don't have a lot of north-south corridors. We have Highway 21, which goes north from, as you know, Huntersville to Cornelius. And then we have 115. So we have to look at ways that we can widen those roads. That's what we have. We have to do it quick. And unfortunately, this contract has made it very difficult to widen those roads. Again, it's the worst thing that we've ever done, that I've ever seen done. We have to find a way to get the state to, if we can get this contract changed, if we can't get it canceled, if we can at least get it changed so that we can have more flexibility to widen the roads outside that corridor, that of course would definitely help. And that's what we're gonna have to look at. It's not gonna be easy.
So when it comes to if Centra ends up running the lanes for the next 10 years, I would like to draw everyone's attention to something under current state law that's called a corridor cap. Now, a corridor cap basically works like this. You have 100 counties in North Carolina. When the transportation formula was changed, they made it so that certain corridors, in our case here in Mecklenburg County, have a limited amount of money that can be allocated to them under the budget. that has to change. Because what will end up happening is, number one, that cap is not sensitive to inflation, it's not sensitive to the cost of actually building roads. So if that cap stays the same, more and more and more projects, as projects become inevitably more and more expensive, will be caught by that cap. So it's not just about making sure that we make the changes now, but it's also making sure that we create laws that provide the flexibility that will give us the chance for our infrastructure to grow as we grow.
Thank you. Since we've got several questions on this topic, could you just, each candidate, Mr. Beasley first, cover your role and involvement in fighting these tolls?
So, number one, as I mentioned in our endorsement letter, or in our questionnaire to be endorsed by the I-77 business plan, I think that three things always come into play. My bishop used to always say, show me your time, show me your talent, show me your treasure. In terms of time, gone to several meetings, including spending weeks talking with elected officials, particularly on the Charlotte City Council. When it comes to talents, as I mentioned before, I'm a contracts lawyer. I deal with these contracts every day. I deal with large-scale structured finance deals every day. I know how to dissect them. I know when someone's telling me something that's not in the docs. I know how to analyze them. And when it comes to treasure, I have donated to the anti-toll effort. I don't like to publicize that, but some people had some questions about it, so I did say that. And I ended up being endorsed by them. So I'm a big believer in showing where your time, your talents, and your treasure lie, and I believe that's how you can show where someone's motivations and heart is.
Thank you, Senator Confield.
So, this is an interesting question for me because I've been so passionately opposed to these since they came out in 2012. 2012 is when they came out. Unfortunately, PAC supporting my opponent has sent out mailers that are false and they're deceptive. There's an article that just went out. I encourage you to go look at it. It's on my Facebook page. It's on my website. And it's about the fact that when I was on the board, these mailers said when I was on the board, I voted for the tolls because of a community plan in 2011. It's completely false. Matter of fact, I called the town manager. I got a copy of it, just went through it to make sure there was nothing sneaky in there. And there wasn't. There wasn't anything in there about the tolls. It didn't mention them. It was all about transportation with the trains. So anyway, so for 4 years I've been fighting the tolls. I have walked neighborhoods trying to get anti-toll candidates in. A lot of them are in this room right now. I have worked at the polls. I have gone to the meetings. As a matter of fact, the first time I think they invited Mr. Beasley to the meeting was in October of last year, and that's where I met him at a meeting that I was at, and it was the first one he came to. And I don't doubt that he's against them. I believe he's sincere. I do. And so I've done a lot, and I'm very passionately against them, but I don't appreciate the mailers. They're false, and it's one of the things I want to change when I get to Raleigh is somehow to bring stability and truth back into our political system.
Thank you. One more transportation question, and this is to you, Candidate Caulfield. Automobiles are more energy efficient, and some do not consume fossil fuels and are not subject to a gas tax. As the gas tax is a declining source of revenue for road improvements, how do you propose we meet our future road funding needs? 1 minute, please.
Well, first of all, we prioritize. You know, I was looking through some information today, and you know that in, I think it was 1999, we had half a percentage added to our tax rate in this county for transportation. And now we have another gas tax that we've added. But really, shouldn't that be one of the priorities is infrastructure? So if we already pay taxes, shouldn't we, like we do our home budget, should we say, okay, we're gonna do public safety, we're gonna do infrastructure, we're gonna do schools, and if we have money left over, then we'll do the other things. But we don't do that. We just spend on whatever, and then we say, oh, we have no money left for roads, we're sorry, we're gonna have to add a gas tax. Oh, well, that didn't work, we misspent it, and so now we're going to have to add another tax. So I'm a firm believer if we need to prioritize our budget, we need to stick to it. Because it's our money they're spending, it's not theirs. And so let's prioritize and let's use the taxes we've already paid to keep up with our roads.
With all due respect to Ms. Caulfield, the gas tax actually goes into a dedicated fund called the North Carolina Highway Trust Fund. So that actually, that money does not intermingle. It's a totally separate funding stream. So when we look at how our gas tax operates, it is based on a flat amount per gallon of gasoline. Now, we are in an environment right now where we have historically low gasoline prices. The key thing that we can do when it comes to changing how we fund our roads is have a mix of different sources so that when gasoline prices go back up and people start buying even more fuel efficient cars, that we don't have the shortfall down the road. So I think when it comes to transportation issues, it's critical that we understand not only how they're funded, mostly through the gas tax, through a dedicated fund, the North Carolina Highway Trust Fund, but also understanding that people are changing the way they get around. And when you change the way you get around, then that affects how roads and other transportation projects are built down the road.
I need a little rebuttal on that one.
You have a minute.
All right, so Representative Jeter is in the room, and he can answer this question more than anybody. So what happened with the gas tax that he's talking about? They did not keep it separate. What happened was they took the gas tax money that was supposed to be dedicated and they spent it. And so that's why when the new legislature came in a few years back, they dedicated, and Representative Jeter was actually a part of that fight, to make sure that it was secured so that they couldn't spend it on other things, just like Social Security at the federal level. They misspent it, now they went in and they protected it, so now it's protected, but it was not before. And that's why we had the whole issue with the tolls. That's why they said we have to do the tolls, because we don't have money because it was spent. So now it's protected. Again, it's all about prioritizing. Do we take our taxes and just spend it willy-nilly and then say, oh, sorry, we just, we don't have enough money? We have the money there. It's just a matter of if we prioritize and put infrastructure at the top like we're supposed to.
Thank you so much. This next question is to candidate Beasley. Regardless, as HB2, regardless of your political party and moving away from who is to blame, what would you do if elected as our House member about HB2 and restoring North Carolina's reputation in the national and international perception?
So this is an issue that has taken up a lot of discussion over the past few months. And it's really unfortunate that we lost so many jobs, so much business and rights because of what was done. This was a short-sighted effort that had unintended consequences. Now, in terms of what we do next, I believe that the best thing that we can do is start from scratch and repeal. Now, when you're in a competitive seat, there are a lot of people who tell you, stay away from controversial issues, don't touch them, make sure you play it safe. I can't in good conscience say, if I believe something is not only wrong for our district, but wrong for our state, that's not. Now, you may not always agree with where I stand, but you'll always know where I stand on these issues. I will always be willing to be forthright and honest with you about these issues. And I will be willing to talk to you about these issues because it's crucial that we have leadership that's responsive to the people, but also is honest about what they believe on issues, whether controversial or not.
This is one where we definitely disagree. When I stepped into this position just not even 2 months ago, I did a lot of research, talked to a lot of legislators, and I got the Constitution and I read it. And so this is where we disagree. Charlotte did not have the authority to do what they did. I don't care if it was about carrots. It did not have the legal authority. Right here in our Constitution, Article 7, Section 1, it says any powers that are given to the local municipalities are granted from the state. So the state had to first make an ordinance or statute, and then the city could have enacted something like this. So what happened was they went and they changed, a lot of major things. And so the state, I think, overreacted, and then you had this hoopla. And so what I think needs to happen at this point is, and the governor even reached out to Mayor Roberts and said, why don't we sit down, if you repeal your ordinance, we'll repeal HB2, and then we can sit down at the table and start over. Why don't we sit down at the table and find solutions if there are real issues on this matter? But let's do it legally, not just because you want to do it. We have to be a legal society.
I'm going to give each candidate another minute on that subject. I feel like we have
with all due respect to Ms. Caulfield, as a lawyer, as someone who's worked on the North Carolina Supreme Court, I think that your understanding of how local control versus state control works in North Carolina is flawed. Now, here's the thing that we have to remember when it comes to state and localities, whether they are controlled by Republicans or controlled by Democrats. Cities and towns and counties don't have to go to Raleigh and ask for permission to do everything. They have to go to Raleigh to talk to them about issues and engage with them, but there is no requirement that you have to go to Raleigh and Raleigh has to vote on every single thing that you pass. So there are also some things that are implicit when it comes to how laws are passed and how ordinances are passed. Now, other cities and towns in North Carolina have done similar quality of life ordinances, regardless of whether or not you support them, whether or not you support this one. They have been done elsewhere. This is the first time that the state has stepped in. So as a lawyer who has worked on the North Carolina Supreme Court, I think your understanding is not accurate.
Thank you.
Well, I beg to differ with you.
1 minute.
Serving again as a town commissioner, one of the first things that you had to do was state what the precedence was for you to do the bill. This is HB 2 right here. And it starts out whereas, blah, blah, blah. And then it says section 1 of Article 7. And then it explains it. It says that local acts regulating, and then it lists a bunch, have to be first granted from the powers of the state. So they could not put this in here if it wasn't true. They have lawyers that work for the state. That is a precedence, and I remember Representative Jeter was awesome at that. We always let him lead when I first came on because he was great at putting in what gave them the authority to do it. So that's what they put in HB 2 because that's the truth. And we're just going to disagree on that.
Callan, can I respond real quick?
We're
So,
going to stick to the format, Rebecca. I appreciate that. I think we've covered the topic.
I mean, okay.
Anybody have the time on that?
That's,
Well, I'm going to move on to a general question that if you choose to use some of your time on that, I'm not going to stop you. What experience do you have that has prepared you to lead in our state government? And this question goes to Candidate Colville.
Thank you. Well, I also was raised by a single mom. My father died when I was very young. And we didn't have a lot of money, although I never knew that. I really didn't know that until I was much older because I just grew up very grateful. She was a woman of faith, and she just taught me that God loved me and God loved people. And so I took that into every area that I've gone into. I served in the U.S. Air Force, as I said before. That taught me to be a team player. You don't go into the military and act alone, right? So I learned to be a team player. I also, as a town commissioner, it taught me some very interesting things about working across the aisle. I served with moderates, extreme conservatives, and I served with one Democrat. And I tell you, Sarah McCauley, she was a commissioner and a former mayor, and we sat down a lot of times in her porch, and we talked about issues, and we came up with solutions. You know, and so that taught me about working with people, and that's one of the things that I'm going to take to Raleigh. And again, the real estate, learning to work with people of a lot of different backgrounds and getting them together to find solutions.
Thanks so much. 1 minute on what experience do you have that has prepared you to lead in our state, and if you want to use some time on the other question, free to do that.
Thanks, Callan. I've been blessed to be able to have a diversity of experiences that I'm really grateful for. I've been able to work as a member of the North Carolina Supreme Court. I was able to work in the United States Senate. I've worked in a shoe store. I've worked in a seafood restaurant, and I now work at one of the largest law firms in the country. All of that has given me the perspective of knowing what it's like to not have much and knowing what it's like to be blessed with a lot. It's knowing what it's like to see firsthand how laws are created at the national level and also see how they're interpreted at the state level. One of the things that we have in our state is the ability, if a law is passed that you believe is unconstitutional, illegal, whatever the case may be, you bring a case. In particular, you bring what's called a preliminary injunction, and you say to the court, stop this before damage is done. Now, if Charlotte's non-discrimination ordinance was illegal, regardless of what you think about it, the proper channel would have been to bring a court case and ask a judge to block it through a preliminary injunction. That's how the law should have worked. But instead, in this case, we had a law like HB2 that was passed in haste. I'm glad that I have been blessed with the opportunity to understand how that whole process works.
Thank you. You got the next question, is that right? Okay. And we might want to do 2 minutes on this one. Last year, in particular, has been troubling when it comes to community policing and reputation and feelings some have with law enforcement. How do we tear down the walls of anger and frustration in this country and bring people together, regardless of race, gender, sexual preference, and income levels? 2 minutes.
So this is an issue that is near and dear to my heart. It's an issue that is personal for me. Like I said, growing up in poverty, there are a lot of things that are pretty tough. But one of the things that I was really blessed to have was a great and supportive community. Many of the police officers in our community went to my church. I knew my name. But what we saw over the past 2 weeks was that there's clearly a disconnect of not only relationship, but also trust. Now, regardless of whether or not you think that should be so, for many people, in their opinion and in their perception, that is so. Now, what we can't afford in North Carolina and in our country generally is for one party to be the party of the police and one party to be the party of the public. That division does us no good. None whatsoever. And lives depend on that division not being created. I'm really proud that I was endorsed by the North Carolina Police Benevolent Association. I'm proud that I was endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 9 right here in Mecklenburg County. And I've had this conversation with them directly. I've talked to them about it directly. Because there are a lot of people right now who look around and they see all the prosperity that we have in this county, and it's wonderful and it's fantastic, but they also feel like they don't get a chance to participate in it. We have to have the compassion and have the understanding to be able to say to these people, you know what? If you're feeling left out of this, come to the table. Let's not only talk about it, let's figure out what we're going to do about it. Let's create solutions. A lot of these solutions have already been discussed and they're already there. Let's put them in place. Because the only way that we can continue to be prosperous, the only way we can continue to grow in the right direction is if every single person feels invested in the success of this county and this state and ultimately this country.
Can you ask the question just?
Rosie, certainly. Basically, the summary is, how do we tear down the walls of anger and frustration in this country, bring people together regardless of race, gender, sexual preference, and income levels? And the concept was community policing.
Well, if the government could do that, wow, that would be awesome. Unfortunately, a lot of these issues are hard issues. And one thing that I saw during the riots that were taking place in Charlotte were two different divides. You had some that were inciting the riots, and then you saw another side, and there's a gentleman by the name of Leon Freed. He's running for U.S. Congress, and he's a pastor in Charlotte. And what he did is he got a group of pastors, and he went down there, and they walked with the rioters, and they prayed. And they talked to the people, and they prayed with them. And they were able to calm. They had a very calming effect of what was going on down there. I'd love to see our faith-based communities more engaged in our communities because I'm Christian, and I think, and it doesn't matter what faith you are, but my roots teach me that we are to love all people. And so that if every individual took that seriously, then we would begin to change. And it's not necessarily a police community issue, although that does exist and there is a lack of trust. And I just want to say, for endorsements, I was thinking about this today, the endorsement that I got from the police is my husband, who's actually a police officer. So that's for me the best endorsement, from my husband, who's actually a CMPD officer, who's away with the military right now. But anyway, I believe that we need to invest more in training, because that's at a state level. A lot of the other things that are more at a local level, because they're overwhelmed with paperwork, police officers, and so they don't have time to go and do the community work that they need to, and I'd love to see that change. And the state will have to work with the local community to do that, but that doesn't come at a state level, but we can definitely give more money for training. I think there needs to be some changes in the training, because the police officers are doing what they're trained to do. But I think that that can be changed, and I think it would help our communities a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. It's an interesting question, but because it relates to our water quality in Lake Norman, and that's very important to our local economy, what is your understanding of the mission of the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality? How well do you believe it is fulfilling this mission under the current leadership? And I believe this is to you, Janet Caulfield.
You know, when I came on, I started doing a little bit more research about the whole coal ash issue that took place in our area. The Dan River had something happen and caused great pollution. Poison got into the water. And as a result of that, North Carolina has actually passed some of the strictest regulations as far as cleanup goes in the country. But something going on over there. Something that I'd like to see is us be more proactive instead of reactive. Because I happen to believe that God gave us the earth. He gave it to us as a very precious gift. And if we don't take care of it, you know, one day He's going to come back and say, wow, I gave you this wonderful gift. What did you do with it? So I'm very strict when it comes to protecting our air, protecting our water. As a matter of fact, I was endorsed by Representative Chuck McGrady. He's actually the former president of the Sierra Club. And a lot of people think the Sierra Club and groups like that is radical extreme. But somebody's got to step up. Somebody's got to say, we've got to protect our environment. Because if we lose it, then what? What do we do then?
So when I was in college, I had the opportunity to serve as a camp counselor at DuPont State Forest in Henderson County. And for those of you who don't know what DuPont State Forest is, that's where they film Hunger Games. So when I was a kid and I was growing up in rural North Carolina, you were sitting outside and you weren't supposed, after you got your homework done, and you weren't supposed to come back till the streetlights came on. And so I grew up running in the woods and climbing trees and doing all that kind of stuff. I want my kids to be able to have that opportunity. And so we need to have we need to make sure that the Department of Environmental Quality is strong, that it has people who have that same level of appreciation for our natural resources. But we also need to make sure that we understand that one of the things that attracts people to our state, one of the reasons why businesses like coming here is because you're 3 hours from the ocean and you're 2 hours from the mountains. And so our environmental quality is actually one of the best selling points for North Carolina. It's actually good business to have a quality environment here. So we need to keep that in mind and make sure that we do have that adherence for our children.
Thank you very much. This question is to Ken Beasley, and we've got several on this topic. Please speak to your view on the controversial issue of abortion and how will you respond if this comes up if you're elected? 1 minute.
So here in North Carolina, I think that we are blessed to be able to have the opportunity to respect the views of others and to understand just how important it is that everybody be able to live the life that they imagine. Now, I understand that people of good conscience can disagree on the issue of abortion. My belief is that as someone who was raised by a single mom and someone who has family members who are raising kids on their own, that it is a woman's right and not my right to decide on what she does with her life and what she does with her life. Now, again, people of good conscience can disagree on that issue. I don't think that we should go down the road of questioning someone's motives because, for example, those of you who may not know, Vice President Tim Kaine, who's running for the vice presidency, has said many times he's personally against abortion, but he doesn't think that women should be thrown in jail for it. So people can have different opinions. People of good conscience can disagree. I know we may disagree on this issue, but that's where I come down and that's where I stay.
Janet Caulfield.
We definitely disagree on this issue. And when I was young, I didn't have the same view. So I'm not harsh in my judgment against people who have a differing view. We all come to places at different times. But here's my view. Once I realized that it was a human being, and I did come to that realization, there's a heartbeat they've proven at 1 month. That means blood is pumping through the veins. They've proven that a baby in the womb feels pain. And so it's a child. And so to say that it's a woman's right, it's not a woman, it's a baby. It's their right. And I heard someone say to me the other day, I'm pro-choice. And I said, what, you're pro-choice? And they said, yeah. I hear the baby saying, choose me. Choose refuse to let me live. And so I'll never back down on this issue. And here's what I believe, and I put it on my Facebook. You know, we talk about transparency. I'm not hiding from this issue because I feel like you have a right to know how people stand on this issue. This is what I have on my Facebook page. We must value life from the womb until our last God-given breath. And so that means seniors need to be cared for. That means handicap. That means people with disabilities. That means our veterans. And that means the baby that's inside a womb, just because we can't see them, they're covered in the most protected place in the earth that God gave us. We have to speak up for life. We can, and once you come to that realization, you are accountable, and I'm accountable to God to speak up for that baby.
Thank you, Tonto. Next question goes to candidate Caulfield. Is that right, or is that yours? Okay. What person living in your lifetime made the single biggest impression on you, and what did they teach you?
Well, I have a few people that I look to and I really admire, and I'll name 4, and I'll be quick. One of them is Mother Teresa, because I believe she spent her life helping others. And when I look at the end of my life, this is what I want to say. I want to say, I lived my life. The purpose of my life was to make a positive difference in the lives of others. That's really one of the reasons I'm running. I don't need this for my ego. I don't need a title. I really want to make a positive difference in the lives of others. Martin Luther King Jr. was another one of mine, because I believe that he stood up for something so valuable, so important. But one of the things I loved about him is he didn't do it with bitterness or hatred. He really displayed character and in my opinion, godliness in that fight, and he gave his life for it. Another one is Rosa Parks. Now, Rosa Parks, you know the story about her, and she didn't have a crowd around her when she made that courageous stand in the bus. She did it with courage in her heart, right? That's a difficult thing to do when you don't have 50 people around you saying, go do it. So she's another one. Billy Graham is another one, because he spoke God's love without judgment, without condemning. He did it in such a powerful way that's impacted not just our nation, but the whole world.
Candidate Beasley.
So when I was a kid, my mom, since she was raising me on her own, she needed someone to take care of me during the day. And so while she was at work, I got a chance to stay with my great-grandmother. Now, she was born in 1910. She was old school. Raised as a sharecropper in Alexander County. Didn't have anything higher than an elementary school or school education. She grew up in a very different time. But she was one of the smartest women I ever met. And she changed my life tremendously because she showed me that it's not necessarily about the degrees that you have on the wall. It's about the lessons that you learn in your life. She taught me that say what you have to say and you sit down. She had a saying for everything. One of her favorite ones was, you can't please everybody. And I never thought I would know just how important that was until I ran for policy. Because if you try to please everybody in this position, you will make everybody mad, including yourself. And so I'm very honored that I was able to spend 10 years of my life learning from that woman, and I hope somewhere she's proud.
Thank you so much. Because I just saw Charlie Deere come back in, I want to read the best question of the night. Don't answer this. Seriously. Charles Jeter compared the shape of District 92 to that of a seahorse. Do you believe legislative districts should be shaped like seahorses?
And I can't answer this?
I think Mr. Jeter should answer that.
Find seahorses in District 92.
I also saw Commissioner Fuller come in the back, and we're about to do his favorite part of the debates. This is the round back.
Actually, I've called our district the kite.
This
Kite
is
with a big tail.
this is a lot of random questions, so you get to pick one out of there. I'll ask it, and you'll get a couple minutes, and then we'll go to Bill Russell's favorite part, which is the lightning round. You're next.
Okay. They can put it back if I don't like it. What's that?
Time's off.
Oh, I don't get to see it? Oh, gee. No matter, a little quicker.
All right, Candidate Beasley, if you could be any fictional character, who would you choose?
Any fictional character? fiance's favorite movie, so I think that will make her happy.
Okay, and why?
Because it's my fiance.
Is she here?
She's not here. She's taking care of our little 7-year-old. So.
Okay, what do you admire about Thor?
I know my fiance has. You
You're my fiance, you're my.
He, I mean, one of the things that he did in every movie was that, he ended up fighting for what was right. And I think that any of us could appreciate someone who does that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I don't get to answer that one. Oh, I had an answer for that.
Well,
I'll give you 30 seconds of my time.
Would you like to answer that question?
I know, my son and I actually had a conversation about this recently. It's in the back there. And we were talking about cartoon characters. Sam, what's the name of the, not Roadrunner, but the other guy that the Roadrunner always tried to kill? Coyote?
Coyote.
Coyote Wiley, was that it? Right. And so he said, I said, oh, I love the Roadrunner. He says, no, the Coyote. Because all those things happened to the Coyote, and he just kept coming back to life. I said, you're right.
No handfuls over your head tonight. To your specific question, what is your favorite time of day, or day of the week, or month of the year, and why?
Wow.
And Chad, you can answer this too.
Well, I like Sundays. Sundays, I have made a commitment to keep Sundays non-working, to honor God, and just to relax. And so I love Sundays. I go to church. One of my pastors is here tonight. And so I go to church on Sundays. I love the community. I love just the communion of being with other people. And I love just the chill time. You know? And I love the mornings because I spend my mornings, I try to, not every morning, but I try to spend that time in just devotion. Getting my mind straight and just spending time with God, and it sets my day right when I do it. I'm not perfect in it, but I'm trying.
So for me, I like Thursdays because the reason I like Thursdays is because every once in a while it's a Friday if you have a long weekend. But also, it's a day where you can be pretty productive, but at the same time, the weekend's in sight. And when it comes to my favorite month of the year, I really love December. I'm a huge Christmas fan. I have always been. I'm like the guy who watches every single Christmas cartoon like I've never seen it. Pretty sure our 7-year-old's actually tired of watching it with me at this point. Time of day, I'm a night owl. I actually do my best thinking probably between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. So if it were up to me, I would stay up late every night, but I'm not in college anymore, so.
Your fiance will clue you in on that. Hey, honey, I said my way back
We're
there.
getting full after.
Okay, now the lightning round. This is Bill Russell's favorite part. So this is where you don't want to think about it too much. We want to react fast. We're moving fast. It's going to be either or questions. And we'll start with Candidate Caulfield. And we're going to ask different ones. I had to get a lot of these, okay? So you may have some opinions on it, but we've got some other ones. So we're going to do this, and then after that we'll do our 3-minute closing and move on from there. Are you ready? Any time on this? Okay. Coke or Pepsi?
Neither.
Oh,
Coke.
Coke. These are just for her.
Oh, just for her?
We don't want to compare and contrast. Barbecue, vinegar-based or tomato-based?
Now, are these just for refill?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, we just had this discussion today. No, neither. I like the honey based.
The honey-based?
Yeah,
Oh,
I like Texas style. You know,
okay.
sweet.
All right. Fame or fortune?
Me? Oh,
Halloween.
pain for sure. I want to leave a mark.
Sunrise or sunset?
Ooh, sunset.
Cats or dogs?
Doggies.
Adventurous or cautious?
Ooh, I'm adventurous.
Detailed or abstract?
Both.
Okay. Roller coaster or Ferris wheel?
Ooh, my kids make me do the roller coaster, but probably nowadays the Ferris wheel.
All right. Bagels or muffins?
Neither. I'm gluten free.
Ready, aim, fire or ready, fire, aim?
That's a different one. Ready, aim, fire.
Okay, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
PC or Mac?
PC.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
You
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Still working on it.
You prefer books or movies?
Movies.
Chinese food or Italian food?
Chinese food.
Okay. Math or English?
Both.
That's good. You lawyers don't like the math part. Unless you do finance, right? Singing or dancing?
Still me?
Yeah?
Oh.
Got one more?
Oh, I do both, all at once.
Football, basketball, or baseball?
Ooh, baseball.
Baseball, okay. That's it. Thank you very much. All right, we've got another set. For candidate Beasley. You ready? Go fast. Okay, home cooked meal or dining out?
Home cooked meal.
Farmer's market or supermarket?
Supermarket.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Just heard that, didn't we? Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
Hugs or kisses?
Say hugs.
Antique or brand new?
Antique.
James Bond or Jason Bourne?
Jason Bourne.
Saver or spender?
Saber.
Call, text, or email?
Text.
Think before you talk or talk before you think?
Think before I talk.
Sweet tea or unsweet tea?
Sweet tea. Is that a question?
We're interested in the answer. Half empty or half full?
Half full.
Do you prefer questions or answers?
Questions.
Heart or brain? Thesaurus or dictionary?
The source.
Shoes or barefoot?
Shoes.
Fox or CNN?
CNN.
Shower or bath?
Shower.
Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, or Twitter?
Twitter.
One good friend or lots of okay friends?
One good friend.
All right, that's it. Did everybody learn something about the candidates? And we'll
Some
start.
debates were just like that.
We're here to learn about you guys, and everybody's interested, right? So we're going to go to 3-minute closings, and because you started last time, we'll let candidate Beasley go, and then candidate Coffey.
Well, thanks again to everyone for coming. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for the attention that you pay both of us. As you know, this is an important election for us. There are a lot of things at stake, both for our community and for us personally. And so when you go to the ballot box, my hope is that you will think about who you want to speak with your voice in Raleigh. Who do you believe will have the foresight and will have the depth of knowledge to dig into these issues on day one? Who would say the things that you would want said and would ask the questions you won't ask, but would also try to find the answers to those questions. You know, oftentimes in politics, people get into the back and forth, and they get into the making sure that you one up the other person. One of the things that I loved about growing up in North Carolina is that for many, many, many years, we were just about getting what needed to be done. Unfortunately, I think that our state is not heading in the direction of having people in office who actually want to accomplish things. I think too many people want to do things that they believe are going to make the best mailers in November. And so I'm a big believer in us getting past that. I'm a big believer in us actually doing the things that work. I'm a big believer in making sure that we can restore the reputation of our state and, more importantly, get back to business. Now, here's the thing that we all have to keep in mind when we go to the ballot box in November. Many of the decisions that we make today will affect both the immediate future of our state and the long-term future of our state. One of the things that I think we deserve in America is a government that actually looks like us, thinks like us, and speaks like us. Right now, there's a disconnect. Right now, we don't have a government that actually is responsive to the vast majority of the people. Now, we're in a competitive seat. This is, in fact, statistically, the most competitive seat in North Carolina. And I can tell you that as somebody who jumped into this race trying to speak up with your voice, having a competitive seat forces me to step my game up. It forces me to be responsive. It forces me to listen to people. It forces me when I knock on doors to hear what people are saying. We need more people who have to earn running for office and have to earn their position and have to be responsive to the people once they get there. We don't need more people who are in safe seats who know that they're going to be able to do whatever they want and say whatever they want to say and still be able to keep their seats. I'm a big believer in accountability. I hope that you will keep me accountable, that you will continue to speak to me about the things that matter. But ultimately, I hope that you never leave a room wondering where I stand on an issue or where I stand on making things the best they can possibly be in our state. I ask you for your support in November, but most of all, I ask that you will continue to be as engaged as possible in this issue because we will be better as engaged as you are. Thank you.
Well, I enjoyed tonight, and I think it was nice that we got to come up here, we got to share our ideas, we were civil towards one another, and I really liked what you did at the end because it showed our humanity, right? That we're just human beings, we both want to do something for our state, we're real people. And I think that the choice, when we go to make a choice for who do we want to represent us, it boils down to this: who do you feel, not who's not a good person or a bad person, it's not about that. Who's most prepared for the position at this time? And I believe, just because of my experience that I've gone through in life, that I am prepared for this moment in our history. I believe, and I've already shared with you those experiences, you know, for being in the military in real estate as a commissioner. I think that, you know, as we decide, it's about how does a person approach the decisions as well that they're going to make. I think that's a big part of it because there's going to be issues that come up that we just don't know about. And so we can talk about all the issues that are at hand right now, but how do we approach the ones that are going to come up? And so I can tell you that one of the first things that I did when I came on the town board is I met with the town manager, and I said, why don't we have work sessions, brainstorming meetings before large votes? And he said, well, nobody's been interested. And I said, well, I'm interested. So at the first retreat in January, he brought it up and said, what do you all think? And they said, sure, let's do it. So we got a lot of things done on the board when I served because we started to brainstorm, because no one person has all the answers. And I think it's really important that you have somebody that's a collaborator, somebody that is willing to work with both sides. You know, I've said this over and over again. I am not running to be a cheerleader for my party. I'm running to be a cheerleader for you and for my community. And so when you look at who you're going to vote for, I know some people are already decided here in the room. We have supporters on both sides. But for those of you who are not, you know, really consider that. Who's prepared? Who has been tried and tested? Who served in a position either, you know, I've both run a business, I've worked with large budgets. The town budget here was $40 million. And so it's one thing to, you know, operate in your career. It's quite another thing to go to a state level when you've never served at a local level. And I appreciate Mr. Beasley, I do. I know that he has a heart for his community, and he's got a lot of ambition, and I'm glad we're running together. I think he's a nice young man. But I just feel I'm more prepared at this time to lead our state. And so as you go to vote, I ask you to vote for me. And if you are going to vote for me, I ask you to go tell more people to come and vote for me. And thank you for engaging in the political process. It's what makes our country so great. Thank you.
Let's thank both candidates. You're going to keep your seats because we have some elected officials in the room, and not just elected officials, but folks who are running currently for office, and we've set aside a little time for anybody who is running for office in the audience to, in no particular order, as the spirit moves you, if you just stand up and tell us your name, the office you're running for, and maybe about a minute or so on why you're running.
Sure. I'm Hunter Murphy, and I'm running statewide for North Carolina Court of Appeals. We have 5 Court of Appeals races on. I'm going to be on the second one on your ballot. My wife Kelly and I, we live with our 6-year-old twins up in the mountains in Waynesville, North Carolina. We just got done with the judicial forum at Charlotte School of Law, so I want to take this time to stop by tonight and appreciate this opportunity. So I ask you to go to huntermurphyforjudge.com. You can learn a ton about me there, read all the opinions I've worked on. But what I bring to the table for the Court of Appeals is a vast background. I've handled all types of civil, criminal, real estate, wills, DSS, all those types of cases throughout my career. Every year, the Court of Appeals handles 1,700 cases of general practice nature. So we need people that have tried cases, know the impacts on real people, and have dealt with their real problems when we're sending cases back down to the trial level or upholding cases that come from the trial level. So I appreciate this short amount of time. I was hoping for a lightning round.
You stick around.
But again, I'm Hunter Murphy. I've got cards. I'll pass them around. I know it's getting late in the night, so my cell phone number's on there. Feel free to call me. I have a 3-hour drive home, so I'm going to be up anyway. So I really appreciate everybody here that's engaged. I think Judge Jones is going to speak next. He and I are not running against each other. We're running in separate races for the Court of Appeals, just so everybody's clear about that.
And we have this room till 9, so any candidates you want to stick around, anybody has questions for the individual candidates, I imagine everybody will stick around and try to answer some questions.
Thank you. Well, I'll just start off well there. Definitely, we're not running against each other. My name is Abe Jones. Abe, and I'm only Abe on the ballot. I'm from Raleigh, and I'm a former Superior Court judge. I served 17 years on the bench in Wake County, road circuit around the central part of the state, came west, not this far west, but came west. Actually, I went to Charlotte a couple times. But anyway, I'm running for one of the seats on the Court of Appeals. There are 5. You get to vote in all 5 of those races, and also for the Supreme Court. My background is I was born in Wilson, raised in Raleigh. I went to Harvard College, Harvard Law School. I clerked on the federal level as a federal prosecutor. Also, I served as a county commissioner. I'm currently head of the library commissioner in my home. I practiced for about 17, 18 years before I went on the bench, and I was on the Superior Court bench for 17 years. I've been a prosecutor, a defense attorney, both civil and criminal defense attorney, a plaintiff's attorney in the civil cases, and I've also done criminal defense. So I've been in each role in the courtroom, including judge. I'm 64 years old and have 39 years experience in the law. So I want to give back to my community, this time to the state. This is a statewide race, and what else should I tell you about? Oh yeah, the fundamentals. I have a card that I'll hand out the back of the room. It's voteajones.com. You can go on the site and read about me, read about my background, and hopefully if you think I'm someone you would support, tell other people. It's very important to spread the word, and everyone look at the judicial races. Start at the back of the ballot, work up. We're in the back. So, I just want to tell you that. And that's all I really have to say. I look forward to meeting you all as you go out. Thanks for having me. I was at the same forum that Hunter was over in Charlotte, and then I put it on VBS and gave you all on.
Well, we're grateful for judicial candidates to come, especially for Court of Appeals. It's and as a lawyer, it's not a lot of folks pay attention to those races, so we're glad that you had an opportunity to come here. Any other judicial candidates? Okay, any other candidates?
Good evening, I'm Jane Campbell, and while I'm not running obviously for the 92nd, I am running for the 98th. So basically it's Cornelius Davidson, the east half of Huntersville, running all the way down into Highland Creek. I'm a Davidson College graduate. I ran off and then spent the next 26 years in the United States Navy, retiring as a captain. Came back in late 2014. Was satisfied at that point in time to just be a volunteer with a number of nonprofit organizations, ranging from the Davidson Housing Coalition to Habitat for Humanity, a number of things with my church and with Davidson College. But when HB 2 was passed, and I realized that the incumbent representative had not only authored part of the bill, had sponsored it, and then voted for it, I looked and realized that he didn't have an opponent. And to me, the inherent part of democracy is having at least 2 people's name on a ballot. That's what I fought for when I was supporting and defending the Constitution, whether it was in Afghanistan or other parts of the world. So what did I do? I went out and got more than 2,800 signatures, some of you probably in this room, and I thank you for signing that. It just meant that we get to have a good, healthy competition. There are a multitude of other issues. Like I said, HB2 motivated me because I just think it's discriminatory legislation that has been harmful to our state economically, business, the events that have been canceled, but also just devastating for citizens of North Carolina. And I look at the fact that Article 1 of the North Carolina Constitution says that all citizens are created equal. So I went out, I got those signatures, I'm now on the ballot, and now we get to actually have discussions about the critically important issues that range from I-77 to education and our public school system, to healthcare issues, to being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. So again, my name is Jane Campbell. I'm running for the North Carolina House in District 98. And please check out our website, check out our information, and we're having the same.
And more importantly, next Tuesday at Cornelius Town Hall is another forum from the Legislature Chamber of Commerce, where Representative Bradford and candidate Campbell will also be having a similar forum. So we invite all of you to come out, and I'm sure you look forward to the lightning round.
Yep, absolutely.
Hi, how's everyone doing? My name's John Hudson, and I'm running against Jeff Tarr for state senate in District 41. Signed up at 11:59, and so here I am, jumping straight in, no suit or anything like that. I fight here tonight. So if I'm elected, which most people say I won't be, I'll be the only environmentalist in the Senate, and I think that's a shame. I think we could have handled the questions better about coal ash, because our entire state is contaminated with mercury, and we're on a fast track to catastrophic global warming. So I hope you guys will switch parties if you're on the wrong side of the issues of torture and war, because it's important that we link local violence with international violence, and understand that we have to do what's best for most everyone that we can to create the highest gross national happiness, and not only talk about things in economic terms, but in human and environmental terms. So, yeah, give me a shot. I'm John_Hudson_41st on Twitter, and I have a website that articulates 22 different positions. I went to Huntersville Elementary School, so my family moved here to find a better school system. I was born in the mountains, and so it's deep in my heart what's going on with the coal ash, and mountain bombing, it's been called, which is burning 300 million year old mountains to cook your food at night. So, I think we have to be aggressive and progressive to talk about not lowering corporate tax rates, but raising them, because rich people can afford to pay more to help those at the bottom. And we need to talk about universal basic income, which I was surprised to hear not mentioned, because Martin Luther King is one of your idols. He was in favor of that.
Hey, you're not debating me.
So, thanks for the chance to let me talk. I'm your, if you remember way back, you probably didn't pay attention. The 1998 Coast State Varsity Debate Champion, North Carolina. Bring on the
Thank you for that. I want to thank all the candidates and all the folks who are running for giving my kids who just showed up in the bag, like Cal, Lily, Will, now they're ducking. Give them a little civics lesson. Appreciate that. Just a reminder again, next Tuesday, same forum, different district, and we're going to stick around for a little bit longer. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner's running. Sorry about that. The other candidates.
I'll help you guys.
Jim Bucket. Jim Bucket.
My name is Joe Bucket, and I am your current county commissioner, and barring a massive write-in candidate, I will be your county commissioner for the next 2 years, because I'm the only one on the ballot. Jane Campbell thinks that is democracy. I think it's just me doing a really damn good job. I serve as a minority member, but I will tell you, 3 of my friends are here tonight. I'm going to have them introduce themselves afterwards. The at-large candidates who are running, Democrats. I am very proud of the Board of County Commission I serve on, and I will tell you that I hope that they will confirm that I do a good job on your behalf. I've served on a lot of boards in this county, and I am thrilled with the amount of respect that we have on the one we have right now. So even though I'm a minority guy, these guys have got your back very often, and they at least help me help you every chance we get. So thanks very much.
County Commissioners, you want to introduce themselves?
Well, Jim Puckett, I want you to know, I was very skeptical of you because I loved Karen Bentley.
We all did.
You were great. You kept telling me that, but I was very suspicious of Puckett, but you were right.
You're not wrong. That's a good instinct.
He's great, but I still love Karen Bentley. And I'm Pat Cotham. I'm the county commissioner at large, and I got to know you when you were all very unhappy when we had the debacle of the revaluation. And I was up here so much with Karen, and we worked very hard on that, along with many other issues. The county was not in good shape at that time, so we made some very brave decisions and made a lot of changes. And so I couldn't look you in the eye then and tell you things were good, because they weren't good. But they're a lot better now, so we're in a much better position. We have a new manager, and the revaluation, we have returned about $100 million to people. So we're in much better shape. But I've been very involved up here. I know a lot of you, and I love being up here. I hate driving up here. I do enjoy talking about the anti-toll, and we have to change that. And I'm proud to have been endorsed by the I-77 business plan, and I was one from the very beginning who always was against the toll road. When Jim Puckett had a resolution to us, and I was definitely supported that, and he and I left the meeting one day and went to the city council and tried to get Viola Isles to change her vote. We did not accommodate that. We didn't get that, but we certainly gave it a try. And I love working with Puckett. He's great, and I love working with Karen Bentley. And we did a lot to get the police changed up the lake patrol, and we worked together to try to get better lake patrol, because you weren't well served by the county at that time. So now things are better. So
Your support at large has been fantastic.
So well,
We appreciate that. It's
we
very
worked.
helpful for a district representative.
We worked very well. She was a little suspicious of me because I was a Democrat, but we
But it all worked.
It all worked out. It all worked out. It all worked out. But anyway, thank you. I appreciate working for you, and I will continue to work on your behalf on the county commission.
Karen, you shouldn't want to come up and talk. Running. We have the chairman now.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I am Trevor Fuller, and I'm privileged to serve you as a county commissioner at large and as the chairman of the Mecklenburg County Commission. And I, like Pat, I was skeptical of this Puckett before he came on the board, but
I had nothing to do with it.
now I'm not going to tell you that Karen told me that, but I'm just saying. And I believe that, first of all, we have the most diverse county commission that we've ever had in Mecklenburg County history. And I think that that is a real treasure for us, because it means that we represent people all across the county. So as a county commissioner at large, I do represent more than 1 million people, and I take that very, very seriously. And we have much prosperity in this county, all across the county. And our challenge, the challenge of our time, is to make sure that that prosperity is shared everywhere in the county. The motto on that state flag is for us to be rather than to seem. So we must actually be prosperous. And for us to be prosperous, that means everybody has to share in it. And here's the great additure about it. If everybody shares in prosperity, we all become more prosperous. So that's why we've been talking about the challenge of economic opportunity in our county and why we're going to make sure that economic opportunity can be achieved everywhere across our great county. So thank you for those of you who voted for me or wanted to vote for me last time. You now have a chance this time, November 8th, to vote and this is such an important election. It really is such an important election. And so I hope you'll go out and vote, and I don't care who you vote for, well, other than one person you vote for. And I just ask for your support because we're all in this together. And I believe that we are stronger when we are together. Again, I'm Trevor Fuller, and I'm running for re-election as the County Commissioner at Large, and I ask for each and every one of your votes. Thank you so much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am Ella Scarborough. I'm a county commissioner at large. And some of you know me because I served 25 years at the McGuire nuclear plant and was the librarian, the technical librarian for the Training and Technology Center. And I see my friend, Gray. What's his name? He worked for the county. Otis Gray's son. You remember Otis Gray's son? Anyway, yeah, no. He served. But I'm delighted to serve you. I've served you now on the county for pretty close to years. But I know a lot about Huntersville because I worked at DuPont. And I have been up here many times, actually, been in this chamber, talking about things. When we developed the Training and Technology Center, we made the Explorium. How many of you know what Explorium is? Explorium Network. I was the manager on that. And so, but the thing that is most important to me is to be able to see the town of Huntersville, Cornelius, Davidson, and all to work together to get things done for Mecklenburg County. And I'm excited about that. I have the privilege of serving also on the commission. I serve on the Economic Development Committee. Now that includes every last one of us in order to do that. Because we must bring in new businesses, we have. We brought in quite a few new businesses since I've been on the commission. And we also work on education. The worst thing we can do is not have a good educated workforce in particular. And so I'm excited about having a wonderful workforce in Mecklenburg County. And I also, before I sit down, let me say this to you. Please do not say, what did she do for me? I need you to call me and ask me what you want me to do. That's exactly right. Because when you do that, that means you've not even given me a chance to help. But you have some very able bodies here. I mean, Jim Puckett's my friend. And he and I were released together. And so, well, I like Trevor Fuller, I guess, and Pat is my friend, so I mean, but anyway, I appreciate you, appreciate what you're doing in this town, and please don't forget to call us when you leave. Elvis
Any other candidates I missed? I'm Callan Bryan. I'm not running for anything. And I'm grateful, but I'm really grateful for all our public servants. I'm grateful for our candidates tonight again and all the candidates who run for the other races. Again, we have the room till 9. Feel free to stick around, ask some questions, and we hope to see all of you next Tuesday. On behalf of Legislature, thanks so much.